watched a video earlier of Amy Gallagher talking to that Josh on the Lotus Eaters, and quite glorious as does she realise what hornet's nest she's just walked into, because the situation she describes, well, it's just not going on just where she was working. She's like, I worked at the Tavistock, but it's a matter of, I think you might find that there are many people in many different places who've got an absolutely, completely identical experience to your own by way of the lunatics literally running the asylum where it comes to the National Health Service. It's like, it's in a strange old way. The things I touch upon on my channel, a lot of them are all coming together in the same place as I suggest they really ought to be. Seriously. The way she was talking about the actual sort of projection that was going on in the hierarchies of where she was working, I was like, does she not yet get that that could be considered as like witchcraft? Where she like does nothing and someone makes an accusation of some kind of imagined slight or microaggression, something that didn't happen suddenly happened. And it like they could take it, decide or decipher any kind of body language and call it traumatizing or triggering. So they decided what the world was at any given time, and it seems that they were control freak, hypersensitive narcissists in positions of authority over kids with personality disorders. So they'd be absolutely perfect subjects for indoctrination. Absolutely perfect subjects for indoctrination. There's something I learned years ago, and you can't unknow it, right? And it'd be, I worked it out, it wasn't just me who worked it out on my own in that moment. It's when I used to talk to Richard Grannon. We worked out that if you get people, right, who are like in absolute distress and depressed, if you can get them in a control situation, you can program them and turn them into anything you want them to be. And it's like, when we came to realise that, as to say, oh my God, it's like in the wrong hands, you know, because we were talking about people who come to us asking for help, you know, because I did counselling, we used to compare notes, and a lot of them were in a bad way, and it's a matter of, you know, if we were bad men, we could just manipulate these people, understanding that they're in shock, and understanding that they're susceptible to suggestion, and then understanding that sympathy would go a long way, where it's not what would help them, but it's like these people are uniquely vulnerable to be dragged into a cult. These people, you could even like make prostitutes of them and put them on the game. You could turn them into your own secret agents and spies. We made that realization at the same time, and it's like, oh my God. And it'd be like these people in the wrong hands, and then the understanding that all that stuff you might learn about occult stuff, where they talk about spells and they talk about things like wetware, programmable humans, mind control projects. You realize it's all true, and to work, it just needs that wetware. It just needs them people who are vulnerable and broken in that kind of way as to where they can be reconditioned, and it'd be simple. It'd be as simple as knowing you can do it, because they're in such a broken down state. So it's like, we between us, he knows about this. It's like Richard is a very good psychologist, and it's like in having sort of like the darker, deeper understandings, it gives him better insight. It's why he's so good. The darker insights as well of Grannon have made Vagnin better. Things that I tried to communicate to Richard years ago, he's now seen the sense of, and there's a few things I taught him that he's like now out working with, because I'm like, it's really not to do with it's like there's bad things going on in the world and there's bad things go on, and it's like accept the reality of it, that people are programmable, and that's what happens to them. They get used. They get messed with and they get gaslit, and they often blame the wrong people for all the problems and stuff like that, and it'd be a matter of people maintain holds over other people for years as well, using all kind of subtle means and suggestion, and it's like all that shit you talk about. Someone's been turned into a sleeper agent. It's like, is that doable? It's like, you bet your ass it's doable. It's not so difficult. It's just a matter of time and patience. It's really dark. It's really dark. It's like broken people in the wrong hands get indoctrinated into cults. And it's like all the different cults in the world are all competing for these broken people. And in recent years, they've started to create their own. And then find ways of working for the government, doing mind control jobs on people. So the dangerous fanatics masquerading as psychologists who've got agendas, political agendas, personal agendas, like the power, have been able to just get access to people at their most vulnerable in order to manipulate them. Say they're doing them a favour when they're actually just re-victimising them for a sense of fun, personal control. Make them into people that better suit my needs. It's like, this is the sickest shit in the universe. It's like, where's this been allowed to flourish? Well, it's been allowed to flourish in the National Health Service. And they've got an endless supply of broken people or broken children that they can reprogram. Why do I say that? You see how many people are on the sick. You see how many people in this country have got like depression issues. You see how many people in these countries are medicated. How many people in this country are mentally ill but not under the auspices of the state and are like self-medicating. Millions and millions and millions of people. They're sat in a holding pattern, waiting for one day someone from the NHS side, to get a letter through saying, oh yeah, you're going to get some counselling. Once they work out that they're dealing with women and girls with borderline personality disorder, right? They ignore them up until they don't. The ones they don't ignore, they come into the system. What happens to them? They get brainwashed and reprogrammed. Into what? The opposite sex. Trans. They find someone who's been roughly used sexually, in essence whored out, and they remake them. They ignore it. They've ignored it for years, and it's a matter of what made these people so broken, and it's a matter of, well, probably the best intentions in the world. What they've done is these psychologists who work for the NHS, they've tried to engage with the borderlines, and engaging with the borderlines has destroyed them, turned them into borderlines. So there's a reason why they avoid them mostly, is that no one can help them. And talking to them, depending on how good their stories are, and I'll tell you what, so you can't do anything about those people. It's like they have a tendency to elicit sympathy. They're experts at it. It's like the whole thing's an act. And you end up with the sort of the Marilyn Monroe situation where no one can help her because they all go, oh my God, she's crying her eyes out, the poor little darling. Not knowing enough about that kind of condition. So it gets ignored, and when it gets ignored until it isn't. There are the people out in the world who don't understand it at all and kind of fall prey to it, And then there are those out in the world who understand it completely and control it and manipulate it. And then there are a load of people in the middle who've got some funny ideas about some people. Can detect when something's a bit off. But there are those that see them. It's like we've ignored in this country a mental illness epidemic where it's like every single one of these out of control, half diagnosed, usually end up brainwashed into some kind of movement, which is an externalization of their own struggle with themselves, trying to find value in a cause that's got to be worth something. It's like we've got an epidemic of just pure wetware out in the world, just everywhere, and it's like they've ignored it. It's like the people who are getting abused by the NHS, they've got personality disorders. Tip of the iceberg. It's been left ignored and out of control. Ignored because they're impossible to treat. They have to kind of find their own way, and usually they find their own thing from one thing to the next. They can tear through the world like fucking hurricanes, destroying everything they touch, confounding everyone they deal with, and find themselves in positions of power. Sometimes their behaviour be seen as, oh, tough, showing those men are just absolutely confounded as to what the fuck am I being accused of? Just blast through everything, blast through the whole world. Men who can see them and know how to play them benefit. Run them ragged. Everyone else, you're not invited to the party at all. Pimps and whore game. A pimp and whore game has emerged, and there's miles more whores than there's pimps. Miles more. Because instead of pimps, we have simps who are enabling this whole pattern, falling under the spell of the, oh, she's so sad. Oh, she's so glum. She just needs a bit of looking after and a bit of attention, and she'll be just fine. She's a bit rough around the edges, but hey, we've all been around, haven't we? Not like that, you haven't. It's like to see cults emerge, like serious cult behaviour and absolutely, completely brainwashed zealots on the television talking, just stop oil. I'm like, you've got pimps and sorcerers at play now. It's like you've got a nightmare, shared delusion, a mass psychotic movement. You've likely got, I don't know, 30 or 40 people a day protesting, and God knows how many people thinking that that's a good cause and actually rooting for them. God knows how many, millions maybe. It's like they're a threat. It's like they're not being seen as a threat. That guy who threw a couple of petrol bombs, they're calling him a terrorist. They're not calling the Just Stop Oil people a potential terrorist threat. And it's like, they absolutely are. They are a dangerous cult. And it's like, as they gain momentum and then just keep repeating the mantra and repeating the mantra. People ask them questions and they repeat a mantra. That's because that's what they want the people out in the world to hear. They reinforce it, they reinforce it, they reinforce it. It's like they're a dangerous cult, and God knows who they are. But they're out there. They are out there. Sympathetic too, would turn a blind eye too. In my estimation, they are a threat to this country's safety. They don't give a fuck what they mess with. They don't really think about it. They do things that are ridiculous and make it about climate change. Well, it's like, I've got a sense of humour. I can make anything about climate change. Anything at all. Just like 2 steps, 2 thoughts, 2 words will get you to climate change if you really think about it. See? That climate change, man. It's like it's merging. It's like you've got a problem with crackpots. You've got a problem with narcissism that's now gotten worse. The lockdown has made it twice as bad as it was. Although saying twice as bad, God, you could say 100 times bad. You could say that, because in some cases it'll turn stable people into people finding out who they really are, and who they really are is a raging fucking fanatic, and then they find somewhere to put it. They find something, they find something bigger than them, and they find existential fear. They find a wider world they don't understand. Loads of people screaming that there's a desperate fucking emergency. At the same time, adding pressure to a market that's trying to stabilise itself in view of the fact that its leaders have got it into an absolutely ridiculous war in the Ukraine that they don't understand and really don't care about, but they've decided to project their hatred onto the Russians because, hey, Russians are bad, to just project hate onto them and demonise them. And that's been our country's reaction to them. Invading Ukraine in view of what's been going on for the last 8, 9, 10 years. Really? It's like, didn't that comet coming from nowhere, that Ukraine, the way that it kicked off the way that it did? And it's because I was kind of expecting it, because I'd been following it for years, because it's off, and it's always been off, but nobody talks about it, because to talk about it is to talk about Obama. Obama. And I'm like, this channel's like, you know, Obama in his way, it's like he's like the Kwisatz Haderach. It's like, what? He says, yeah, he's an absolute chancellor who came in from nowhere, who made friends with the natives, convinced them that he was their messiah, and they elected him for it. They gave him a Nobel Peace Prize. No matter what he did, he was always excused. And any criticism laid against him, an army of fucking arseholes out in the world would just simply accuse the detractors of being racist. And from behind that smokescreen, he was able to do whatever he wanted. So it's like, I was like vehemently against that. That shit is why you ended up with Donald Trump, what Obama was up to, and still to this day they don't talk about it. War breaks out in Ukraine, it's a matter of, oh, they're going to have to talk about Obama. No, they don't. It's like the whole thing kind of makes sense as to where they've been dragged in a war, if you think of it, that it's the whole thing, the old dragging in a war thing, and the old narrative that they're covering up is a matter of, well, you know, Obama destabilise this place, pick sides, and then people are in situ, and it's a matter of, you know, if we don't, we can basically burn Obama and not help the Ukrainians, or we can save his face by going to war. They got a war to save Obama's face, and I tell you, he was a Kwisatz Haderach. He was like an astral messiah they sent you. He created in the imaginations of so many people an illusion of absolute grace and authority. He's a total fucking dumbass. A dangerously unhinged idiot. The long-legged Mac Daddy was indeed the longest-legged Mac Daddy ever, and you've got to consider how many people are under his sway and how many people who are absolute fucking idiots now owe him something and are in power in the United States and the rest of the world. If what Edward Snowden said is true, Obama was reading everyone's emails. Hello. Why don't we talk about Obama? Well, today there's a video out that people are heckling him and saying, you started a war in the Ukraine in 2014. You brought a government down. You started this. Why are you talking about it? So finally. So it's like that, and Andrew Tate declaring himself now that he's got respect for God and he fears God, and he's now become a Muslim. Those things are lining up. It's like, wow, it's like from here it feels like the threads that I bring together are actually all just coming together at once. It's like suddenly there'll be those who work out about certain things that I've been right all along. And I'm no less useful right now. There's serious things afoot. Things I've long foreseen have certainly come home to roost. But at the same time, apply the right pressure in the right place and the whole lot of it can come down. And I don't mean the society be destroyed by fucking idiots and terrorists. I mean these cults fall. The cult of Obama fall. The climate cult fall. The trans cult fall. And all be judged. Now that's a day, isn't it? Wouldn't that be a set of tweets? Wouldn't that be a meme? And it'd be a matter of that. It's like, this is, as far as I'm concerned, it's like this is inevitable. I just see it coming. I see loads of things just coming. I'm like, you just have to wait long enough with what's in play for it to just reach a fever pitch as to where you've got cults, imaginary cults with idol worship. People throwing it down as if the world's dying because they believe it is, when it's not. They've been tricked. But if you were to tell them that the world isn't going to die, they'd be like, well, what am I going to do without a world to save? And it's like, well, you could start by, doing some work on yourself. And they're like, are you kidding me? I'm perfect the way I am. I don't like the idea of these fantasists each gluing themselves to the road. And there'd be strangers who've talked to each other on the internet in a lot of cases, or like groups of 2 and 3 who've gone down to meet up, and them coming away with a sense that they've been at war and like in the shit together and bonded over this. That freaks me out. They jump into their own little WhatsApp groups. They start, oh, I was there and here's my photos, and oh, you're so brave. See the messages Mark gets. I'm still a friend of Mark Coleman's on Facebook. He posts his Just Stop Oil stuff where he's turned up. I've got off at court. I'm due in court. Here's my, please give to my GoFundMe to pay me legal costs. And the money rolls in. And people send him message, oh, you're so brave. I wish I had the guts you have to go out and stand up to these terrible polluters and people who don't take climate change seriously enough. It's like, they're out there. And it's like, when they're not being that, they're being massive gender enthusiasts, huge feminists, massively pro-Ukrainian and anti-Russian, and they all hate Donald Trump. It's like you've got the same people operating all these little puppets, The same gang. It's like once that group decides that you're worthy of attention, you're going to get some fucking attention. It's like, I wish they'd give me some attention. I wish they'd take that information I leave in my Twitter bio and attempt to concoct some kind of magical thing to maybe take me down. I want someone to try that. I want the high priestesses of the left, those who are claiming to be dabbling in sorcery and gaslighting endlessly and playing all kinds of games. I want them to discover me. And I want them to come at me. Just those people. I'd love it. That'd be the day. That's all I'm sat in the world waiting for, is the day when they find me. Because that'll be the day their game's over. You won't believe it. I won't even have to leave this chair. Seriously. It's like, I've seen what's happening coming a long, long time ago, right? As in its form, as it is now. You don't think I haven't set up some kind of contingency plan for what to do in the case of, do you? It's like, I've been knee deep in this water over 20 years now. For keeps. And I'm like, you guys don't take it seriously enough. Well, in some regards, I've been taking it seriously for you. It's like, if you want a shiv to stick in the heart of those fucking idiots, it's like, set me on Just Stop Oil. Give me a platform. One of the big guys, give me a platform and say, John, you're a working class fellow, someone from the very bottom. What do you think of this cult? I'll take it down for you. Do it in 15 minutes.